First, let's talk about what a fatty acid is. Fatty acids are hydrocarbon chains, so they're just a chain of carbon and hydrogen that have a carboxylic acid. That's it. So, again, here is an example. This is a long chain of carbons and hydrogens with a carboxylic acid functional group at the end. That is a fatty acid. That's the very base definition. Now, generally, the chain portion of this contains between 4 to 36 carbons. One really interesting thing to note is that almost all of the natural fatty acids that we see in nature use an even number of carbons. Now, there is a reason for this. It has to do with the ability to form double bonds. So, you need two carbons to make a double bond. Usually, there's going to be an even number so that we have this space for double bond formation. Also, most natural fatty acids are unbranched. So there's no methyl group sticking off of them, no branches. They're just a single long chain of hydrocarbons with a carboxylic acid at the end. Now, another definition that is key to fatty acids is describing it as saturated or unsaturated. Saturated fatty acids do not have any double bonds in the carbons. Now, saturated fatty acids, fats that are saturated, tend to be able to pack better, and they tend to also be solids at room temperature. And you can remember this as saturated is solids. They pack really well and they solidify into something that's at least semi-solid. Unsaturated fatty acids is any fatty acid that has at least one double bond in it. So these tend to be kinked. You can actually see in the drawing. They don't stack as well, and they tend to be liquids at room temperature. We can further describe these using vocabulary by saying if they are monounsaturated, meaning they just have one double bond, or polyunsaturated, meaning more than one double bond in the chain. There's also some nomenclature when it comes to fatty acids that you will see, and I want you to understand the very basics of what the nomenclature means. There is a systemic name that helps to describe the whole molecule. This actually comes from your IUPAC naming of organic molecules back in organic chemistry. So remember that we can describe a hydrocarbon chain based on how long it is. So, for example, this chain shown below is 18 carbons long. That's where it gets the octadeca name. That's 18. This oic acid means that it has a carboxylic acid on it. The 9 means that in the 9th position in numbering, we have a double bond, and that double bond is in a cis formation. So again, this is based on that IUPAC naming. Almost all the lipids we'll be seeing also have a common name. I don't expect you to memorize all of these common names, but just be aware generally that these common names exist. For example, oleic acid is the same as this cis-9 octadecanoic acid. Now, the most important thing, the thing that I want you to understand is this numbering system. A lot of times, fatty acids will generally be described based on their numbering system. We won't usually use their naming or even their IUPAC naming, but instead we'll use this numbering system right here. This numbering system tells you that this is a fatty acid that is 18 carbons long and that it has one double bond. So the first number, again, just tells you how long the chain is. The second number tells you how many double bonds are in the chain. Now, this third portion, where you see a delta 9, using the delta numbering system tells you the location of the double bond. And it tells you based on the location counting from the carbon that is part of the carbonyl. So if we start here and we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the very first carbon that starts our double bond is the number that we use. Now, interestingly, there is a secondary, less often used numbering system, which counts instead of from the carbon that is in the carbonyl. So instead of starting here with 1, they start at the other end. So if we were to start here, this would be position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can see it just so happens that because this is a symmetric molecule, the omega numbering is also in a 9. So this would be omega 9. Again, omega numbering just starts counting from the end with the methyl group, and the delta numbering starts numbering with the carbon that is part of the carbonyl. The delta numbering is used more often, but the omega numbering is still utilized occasionally. The reason I tell you about both of them is because the name for omega-3 fatty acids comes from the omega numbering. So omega-3 fatty acids are essential nutrients. They're a type of lipid that are essential to us as humans, but we do not make them, so we have to consume them. They contain a couple omega acids like ALA, DHA, and EPA. EPA is shown below. EPA is just short for this eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA. And you can see that if we count from this end, 1, 2, 3, our very first double bond starts at the third carbon, which is why this is a omega-3 fatty acid. Now, using the delta system, you can actually see the delta system written here. We have a different numbering system. So this is a fatty acid that is 20 carbons long. It has 5 double bonds, and the positions of those double bonds are as shown here, starting at carbon number 5, number 8, number 11, number 14, and number 17. So again, this is the difference in those two namings, delta versus omega. I want you to understand what they mean, understand what this, for example, 18.1 or 25 means as well, but not necessarily memorize all of the fatty acids. So here, just for visualization, is a list of very common fatty acids. You can see their carbon skeleton base number. So for example, all of these fatty acids shown in this table are saturated because they have 0 double bonds. And they're of different chain lengths, so 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 24. Remember that we, in nature, generally only see even numbered chain lengths in our fatty acids. Here's some more that show, again, the carbon skeleton numbering. These are all unsaturated. They have at least 1 double bond. In particular, ones that we see often in nature are these fatty acids, this palmitoleic acid, oleic acid, linoleic acid, alpha linoleic acid, which is a variety of linoleic acid, and arachidonic acid. Arachidonic acid actually is part of lipids that are very involved in our inflammation system in the body.